Dad. The single word was barely louder than a whisper, yet it stopped the most feared man in the Blackwood Hotel, as if the entire world had suddenly forgotten how to move. Ethan Miller felt his heart slam against his ribs. 5 years. He had spent 5 careful years building a quiet life. 5 years convincing himself that the past belonged somewhere far behind him. And it had taken his 5-year-old son less than 5 seconds to bring that past walking straight toward them. Vincent Hayes stood 20 feet away beneath the enormous crystal lights of the hotel lobby, surrounded by men in dark suits who moved with the disciplined silence of people accustomed to following his lead. At 34, Vincent looked almost exactly as Ethan remembered him. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. His dark hair neatly swept back, and his expression unreadable. Time had sharpened him. The newspapers called Vincent a ruthless businessman. People who knew the city better used quieter words when discussing the Hayes family. Ethan simply remembered the man Vincent had been before everything went wrong. Liam. Ethan whispered, reaching for his son's hand. Come here. But Liam remained frozen beside his twin brother, his small fingers still pointed across the marble lobby. Noah, usually the cautious one, stared just as openly. Ethan knew what they were seeing. He had noticed those similarities every morning for 5 years. Vincent's gray-blue eyes lived in Noah's face. The same serious tilt of his eyebrows appeared whenever Liam was confused. Even the stubborn little lift of Noah's chin could pull Ethan backward through time if he looked at it too long. Liam glanced at his brother, then back at Vincent. He looks like us. Ethan's stomach dropped. Boys, we need to go. He gathered their winter coats from the chair beside him, moving too quickly now, but neither child followed. Something had changed across the lobby. Vincent had heard them. One of the men beside him continued speaking, apparently unaware that his boss was no longer listening. Vincent slowly turned his head. His gaze landed first on Liam, then Noah. Ethan watched the color drain from Vincent's expression. The controlled mask Ethan remembered so well simply disappeared. Vincent stared at the twins as though he were looking at 2 impossible answers to a question he had stopped asking years ago. Liam gave him a shy little wave. Are you our dad? This time, everyone nearby seemed to notice the silence. Vincent's companions stopped talking. Noah reached for Ethan's hand, sensing the sudden tension without understanding it. Ethan squeezed his son's fingers. We're leaving. He turned toward the hotel entrance, but Liam tugged gently against him. Dad, wait. Ethan stopped breathing. Liam had met the stranger behind them. Footsteps crossed the marble floor. Slow, measured, familiar. Ethan had once believed he would forget that rhythm. He never had. The footsteps stopped several feet behind him. Ethan closed his eyes for one brief second before turning around. Vincent was no longer looking at the children. He was looking directly at Ethan. Recognition arrived slowly, then all at once. The ruthless composure vanished from Vincent's face, replaced by something Ethan had never seen there before, disbelief. His gaze moved from Ethan to Noah, from Noah to Liam, and then back again, silently calculating 5 missing years. Ethan could almost see the questions forming. Vincent finally opened his mouth, but no words came. For perhaps the first time in his life, Vincent Hayes had absolutely nothing to say. Take the boys and go, Ethan said quietly, though his voice sounded steadier than he felt. Noah immediately moved closer to his side, but Liam kept staring at Vincent with the fearless curiosity only a 5-year-old could possess. Vincent remained several feet away, his expression controlled again, yet Ethan could see the questions behind those gray-blue eyes. Daniel Brooks approached from behind Vincent and murmured something too softly for Ethan to hear. Vincent raised one hand, and Daniel stopped immediately. No, Vincent said. It was the first word he had managed since recognizing Ethan. His voice was deeper than Ethan remembered, but unmistakably familiar. Nobody follows them. Ethan had already begun, guiding the twins toward the revolving doors when Vincent spoke again. Ethan. Hearing his name from Vincent after 5 years felt strangely heavier than hearing Liam call the man Dad. Ethan stopped, but did not turn around. Please, Vincent said. That word made Ethan look back. Vincent Hayes did not ask people to stay. At least, the Vincent Ethan remembered never had. The boys are tired, Ethan replied. We are going home. Vincent glanced at Noah and Liam. His attention lingered on their faces before returning to Ethan. How old are they? Ethan tightened his grip on their coats. That is none of your business. Ethan. 5, Liam announced helpfully. Ethan closed his eyes for half a second. Noah nudged his brother. Mom says we are not supposed to tell strangers everything. I am their dad. Ethan corrected gently, and Noah nodded, embarrassed by his mistake. Vincent's expression shifted at the word dad, but he said nothing about it. Ethan could almost watch the calculation happening behind his eyes. 5 years. 2 boys. 2 familiar faces. Vincent looked at Ethan with quiet disbelief. 5. They turned 5 in October, Liam continued. We had dinosaur cake. Liam. Sorry. Vincent seemed to forget the crowded lobby entirely. October, he repeated. Ethan knew exactly what that date meant to him. Vincent knew too. Daniel stepped forward again. Vincent, the meeting upstairs is waiting. Cancel it. Daniel blinked. The entire board is here. Then they can all go home. Ethan remembered that tone. Calm, final, impossible to argue with. He hated that some small part of him also remembered how safe it had once made him feel. Do not do this, Ethan said. Do what? Turn my children into another problem you can solve. For the first time, something unmistakably wounded crossed Vincent's face. I did not know there was a problem. There is not. Ethan placed a protective hand on Noah's shoulder. We have a good life. I can see that. Vincent took one careful step closer, then stopped when Ethan stiffened. That restraint surprised him more than any demand could have. Vincent looked down at Noah. The boy stared back with the same serious expression Vincent wore whenever he was trying to understand something complicated. Then Vincent looked at Liam, who was still studying him with open curiosity. You disappeared, Vincent said softly. Without a message. Without an explanation. For 5 years, I did not know whether you were safe. Ethan swallowed. I had my reasons. Then tell me. Not here. Fine. Name the place. There is no place. Ethan turned toward the doors again. Vincent did not follow. Ethan, he called. Ethan stopped one final time. They are not yours. Silence settled between them. Ethan immediately wished he could take the sentence back, not because he wanted Vincent to know the truth, but because the lie sounded painfully weak. Vincent studied Noah's gray-blue eyes, then the stubborn expression on Liam's face. When he looked back at Ethan, there was no anger in his voice, only certainty. Then why does he have my eyes? Vincent did not follow them out of the hotel, and somehow that frightened Ethan more than if he had. 40 minutes later, after getting Noah and Liam home to their small apartment and convincing them that the mysterious man from the lobby was simply someone Ethan used to know, he stood alone at the kitchen window watching rain blur the streetlights below. 5 years earlier, Vincent Hayes had not entered Ethan's life as a mafia boss. He had entered it as a stranger who needed coffee. Ethan had been 22 then, working evening shifts at a quiet bookstore cafe in downtown Chicago while saving money for community college. Vincent appeared one rainy Thursday 10 minutes before closing, wearing a dark wool coat and an expression that discouraged conversation. Ethan had recognized him from local business magazines, but he had treated him exactly like every other customer. Coffee? Ethan had asked. Vincent glanced at the empty tables. Are you still open? For 9 more minutes. Something almost resembling amusement touched Vincent's face. Then coffee. That should have been their entire story. Instead, Vincent returned the next Thursday. Then the Thursday after that. He always ordered black coffee and sat beside the window with his phone turned face down. Ethan eventually noticed that Vincent never seemed relaxed anywhere except that corner. The city described Vincent as ruthless, cold, and impossible to read. Ethan discovered something less dramatic. Vincent hated cinnamon, preferred old mystery novels to business books, and sometimes stared at the rain as though he wished he belonged to an ordinary life. Their conversations grew slowly. Ethan never asked about rumors surrounding the Hayes family, and Vincent never treated Ethan like someone who needed to be impressed. You are strange, Vincent told him one night. Why? Everyone wants something from me. Ethan wiped down the counter. I want you to stop arriving 8 minutes before closing. Vincent actually laughed. Ethan remembered staring because he had never heard that sound before. Months passed. Coffee became conversations. Conversations became weekend walks through crowded public parks and quiet dinners where Vincent could temporarily become simply Vincent. Ethan knew the man had powerful connections and complicated responsibilities, but he also saw the person behind the reputation. Vincent listened when Ethan talked about wanting a home with a kitchen large enough for family breakfasts. He remembered Ethan's favorite blueberry muffins. He once drove 20 miles across the city just to return a book Ethan had forgotten in his car. For the first time in Ethan's life, being an Omega did not feel like the most important thing about him. Vincent never reduced him to a role. Then everything changed. One evening, Vincent canceled dinner without explanation. The next morning, Ethan received a message from an unfamiliar number asking him to meet at a downtown office. A man Ethan had seen beside Vincent several times was waiting there. He introduced himself as Charles Mercer, a senior advisor to the Hayes organization. Charles placed an envelope on the desk between them. Inside was enough money to change Ethan's life. Vincent has decided this relationship has become inconvenient, Charles said. Ethan stared at him. Then Vincent can tell me himself. Charles remained calm. He asked me to handle it. Ethan left the envelope untouched. He called Vincent repeatedly that night. No answer. The next day, Vincent's number stopped connecting entirely. Within a week, Ethan learned something else, something that transformed heartbreak into fear about the future. He was expecting children. Ethan had almost gone directly to Vincent's home. Then another message arrived from Charles containing only 7 words. Do not make him choose between you and power. Standing in his apartment 5 years later, Ethan remembered those words with painful clarity. What he did not know was that across the city, Vincent Hayes was sitting in his silent office asking Daniel Brooks a question that would begin unraveling everything. Daniel, 5 years ago, who controlled my private phone? Daniel did not answer immediately. Vincent noticed. In the 5 years Daniel Brooks had served as his closest advisor, hesitation had never been part of the man's vocabulary. My private phone, Vincent repeated. Who had access to it? Daniel stood across from the desk, thinking carefully. At that time, Charles Mercer managed your schedule, communications, and security protocols. He also handled replacement devices whenever you traveled. Vincent leaned back slowly. Outside his office windows, Chicago glittered beneath the rain. But his attention remained fixed on a memory he had spent years trying to understand. 5 years ago, Ethan had simply vanished. Vincent had called him from New York after an unexpected business trip. The number was disconnected. He had returned to Chicago 2 days later and gone straight to the bookstore cafe, only to learn Ethan had resigned. Vincent had searched, quietly at first, then relentlessly, but Ethan Miller seemed to have erased himself from the city. Find Mercer, Vincent said, and recover everything from that period. Messages, phone records, calendar entries. Everything. Daniel nodded. What about Ethan? Vincent looked toward the rain. Nobody approaches him. Nobody follows him. Nobody frightens those children. Across town, Ethan sat at his kitchen table after Noah and Liam had fallen asleep. An old cardboard box rested before him. He had carried it through 3 apartments and never found the courage to throw it away. Inside were pieces of a life his sons knew nothing about. A photograph from a lakeside afternoon, a movie ticket, a bookstore receipt with Vincent's handwriting across the back. At the bottom was the envelope Charles Mercer had given him. Ethan had never taken the money, but he had kept the envelope because some wounded part of him had needed proof that the rejection had been real. He remembered discovering the pregnancy only days later. The clinic had been small and quiet. Ethan had sat alone beneath fluorescent lights while the doctor explained that he was expecting twins. His first emotion had not been fear. It had been joy. For one bright second, he imagined Vincent hearing the news. He imagined that rare smile, the one nobody else seemed able to summon. Then Charles's warning returned to him. Do not make him choose between you and power. Ethan had been 22, heartbroken, frightened, and convinced that Vincent had already made that choice. So he left Chicago. He spent several months with his cousin Rachel in Milwaukee, working remotely and saving every dollar he could. When Noah and Liam arrived, Ethan's world reorganized itself around 2 tiny lives. There were exhausting nights, tight budgets, and mornings when he wondered how one person could possibly do everything. But there was laughter too. First steps across Rachel's living room. Crayon drawings taped to refrigerators. Birthday pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Eventually, Ethan returned to Chicago after finding steady work managing a neighborhood bookstore, convinced the city was large enough for 2 separate lives. For nearly 2 years, he had been right. Until today, his phone suddenly vibrated on the table. Ethan stared at the unfamiliar number. A message appeared. This is Daniel Brooks. Vincent asked me to tell you that nobody will contact you again unless you choose it. But there is something you need to know. Vincent never sent Charles Mercer to you. Ethan read the sentence twice. Then a third time. His fingers went cold. Before he could respond, another message appeared. And Vincent says he never knew you were expecting children. Ethan slowly looked toward the hallway, where Noah and Liam slept. For 5 years, he had built his entire life around one certainty. Now, in less than 30 seconds, that certainty had begun to collapse. For almost an hour, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with Daniel's messages glowing on his phone, unable to decide whether the truth frightened him more than the lie had. At 7 the next morning, Noah appeared wearing mismatched socks, followed by Liam carrying a stuffed dinosaur under one arm. Their ordinary morning routine felt strangely precious. Ethan made pancakes, packed 2 lunches, found Noah's missing library book beneath the couch, and answered 6 different questions about Vincent without answering any of them properly. By 8:30, he had reached one decision. If Vincent truly had not known, Ethan owed him a conversation. Not forgiveness, not trust, just the truth. He sent Daniel a short message and chose a public place himself, a family cafe near Lincoln Park where Ethan often brought the twins on Saturday mornings. Vincent arrived exactly at 10. He came alone. No expensive convoy waited outside. No advisors entered behind him, and instead of the severe charcoal suit from the hotel, he wore a simple navy coat over a gray sweater. Ethan noticed the effort immediately and hated that he noticed. Noah and Liam were coloring at the table when Vincent approached. Liam looked up first. "You came." Vincent stopped, as if the statement carried unexpected weight. "I did." Noah studied him carefully. "Do you always look that serious?" Ethan nearly dropped his coffee. Vincent considered the question. "Apparently." Liam laughed. To Ethan's astonishment, Vincent sat down across from the boys and looked completely uncertain about what to do next. This was a man who could walk into a room full of powerful executives and make everyone wait for him to speak. Now Liam pushed a green crayon toward him, and Vincent stared at it like an unfamiliar business proposal. "You can color the dinosaur," Liam explained. "Green?" Vincent asked. "Dinosaurs can be any color." Vincent nodded solemnly. "That seems reasonable." Ethan watched him begin coloring with surprising concentration. Something tightened in his chest. Noah noticed Vincent held the crayon in his left hand. "I am left-handed too." Vincent's hand stopped. "Are you?" Noah nodded. "Dad says I got it from somebody." Ethan suddenly became very interested in his coffee. Liam leaned closer to Vincent. "Do you like blueberry pancakes?" Vincent slowly looked at Ethan. "Yes." Liam's eyes widened. "So does Noah." "Many people like blueberry pancakes," Ethan said quickly. "Do many people have the same eyes?" Noah asked. Ethan had no answer. Vincent did not look triumphant. That was what unsettled Ethan most. There was no satisfaction in his face, only a quiet sadness that seemed to deepen with every similarity he discovered. Vincent asked the boys about kindergarten, favorite books, and dinosaurs. He listened to every answer. He never once asked them to call him anything. After 20 minutes, Liam announced that he needed to inspect the pastry case, and Noah followed him with Ethan's permission. The moment the boys were several feet away, Vincent spoke quietly. "I recovered some records." Ethan's shoulders tightened. "And Mercer intercepted messages from you. He also removed several calls from my records while I was traveling." Ethan stared at him. Vincent continued, "I am not asking you to believe me today. I am asking for the chance to prove it." Ethan looked toward his sons. Liam was pointing excitedly at a chocolate muffin while Noah counted the cookies in the display. "They have had stability their entire lives," Ethan said. "I will not let anyone disrupt that." "Neither will I." Ethan met his eyes. "You still do not know for certain." Vincent was silent for a moment. "Then tell me I am wrong." Ethan opened his mouth, but the words would not come. Across the cafe, Liam suddenly called, "Vincent, come see this giant cookie." Vincent looked at Ethan instead of moving, silently asking permission. That small gesture broke through something Ethan had spent 5 years building. He nodded. Vincent stood and joined the boys at the pastry case. Ethan watched all 3 of them reflected in the glass, 2 small faces beside the unmistakable outline of the man they resembled, and realized the truth was becoming impossible to hide. The truth came out 3 days later in Ethan's living room. With rain tapping softly against the windows, and 2 sleeping children down the hall. Vincent had waited until Ethan invited him. He arrived without Daniel, without an entourage, and without the commanding presence he usually carried into every room. For several minutes, neither man spoke. Ethan stood beside the kitchen counter while Vincent remained near the couch, leaving nearly 10 feet between them as though distance itself were a promise. Finally, Ethan looked toward the hallway and said, "Yes, they are yours." Vincent became completely still. Ethan had imagined this moment hundreds of times over the years. In some versions, Vincent was furious. In others, he demanded explanations. Ethan had even imagined cold indifference. He had never imagined silence followed by Vincent lowering his eyes, as if for simple words had suddenly made the room too heavy. "Both of them?" he finally asked. "Noah and Liam are your sons." Vincent sat slowly on the edge of the couch. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" There was no accusation in his voice, which somehow made answering harder. "I tried." Vincent looked up. Ethan retrieved the old envelope from a kitchen drawer and placed it on the coffee table. "Charles Mercer gave me this 5 years ago. He said you wanted me gone." Vincent opened the envelope and stared at the untouched money inside. His expression hardened, but his voice remained controlled. "I never authorized this. I called you. I never received those calls. Then your number stopped working." Vincent closed his eyes briefly. "Mercer replaced my phone during the New York trip. He told me there had been a security problem." Ethan felt the old certainty inside him beginning to fracture again. There was more. He showed Vincent the message he had saved for 5 years. "Do not make him choose between you and power." Vincent read it twice. "I never said this. I believed you had." "Why?" Ethan looked away. "Because everything around you is bigger than me. Your family, your business, your reputation. I was 22 years old, working in a bookstore cafe, and suddenly I was expecting twins. I thought Mercer was delivering the decision. You were too busy to deliver yourself." Vincent's face changed. "Ethan, I searched for you." Ethan turned back. "What?" "For almost 2 years. Quietly at first because I thought you wanted distance. Then everywhere I could without turning your life into a public spectacle. Mercer kept telling me there was no trace." Ethan sat across from him. For the first time, the 5 missing years looked different from both sides. "I went to Milwaukee," Ethan said. "Rachel helped me until the boys were born." Vincent's eyes moved toward the hallway. "What were they like?" The question caught Ethan off guard. "As babies?" Vincent nodded. Ethan smiled despite himself. "Noah hated sleeping unless someone walked around with him. Liam slept through almost anything, but he cried whenever Noah cried." A faint smile appeared on Vincent's face before disappearing again. "Their first words?" "Noah said book. Liam said pancake." Vincent gave a quiet laugh that sounded almost broken by emotion. Then his expression became serious. "I missed everything." Ethan did not know how to answer that. "I cannot give those years back." "I know." Vincent looked toward the hallway again. "But if you allow it, I would like to know them now." Ethan studied him carefully. "This cannot be about ownership, Vincent. It is not. And you cannot suddenly decide how we live." "I will not." Ethan waited, searching for the ruthless man everyone else described. Instead, Vincent simply said, "You decide what happens next." Before Ethan could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Noah stood there in dinosaur pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Dad." Both men looked up. Noah pointed at Vincent. "Why is he crying?" Ethan turned back and saw the single tear Vincent had apparently failed to notice. Vincent quickly wiped it away, but Noah had already crossed the room. He climbed onto the opposite end of the couch and studied Vincent with solemn curiosity. "Are you sad?" Vincent swallowed. "A little." Noah considered that answer, then pushed his favorite stuffed triceratops across the cushion. "You can hold Henry. He helps." Vincent stared at the toy, then carefully picked it up. Ethan watched his son's small gesture dismantle another piece of the wall between them. And for the first time, he wondered whether the question was no longer whether Vincent deserved to know the truth, but whether all 4 of them had been robbed of the same 5 years. By morning, Vincent had stopped asking himself why Ethan disappeared and started asking who had worked so hard to make sure he stayed gone. Daniel arrived at Vincent's office shortly after 7 with 5 years of archived records and an expression that told Vincent the answer would not be simple. "Mercer did more than intercept Ethan's messages," Daniel said. "He changed travel schedules, redirected private correspondence, and removed Ethan's name from internal searches." Every time you asked for an update, Mercer controlled the information you received. Vincent stared through the windows at Chicago waking beneath a pale winter sky. Why? Daniel placed an old financial report on the desk. Your uncle Robert was preparing to transfer leadership to you. Several senior advisors believe personal attachments would make you easier to influence. Mercer appears to have agreed. Vincent turned slowly. He erased Ethan from my life because he considered him a weakness. That is what the records suggest. Daniel hesitated before adding, there is something else. Mercer knew Ethan was expecting children. Vincent's composure cracked. How? A private clinic sent a confirmation call to the emergency contact Ethan had listed months earlier. Your old number. Mercer received it. For several seconds, Vincent could hear nothing except the quiet hum of the building. Mercer had known. He had known there were children, and he had allowed Vincent to spend 5 years believing Ethan had simply walked away. Where is Mercer now? Retired in Arizona 2 years ago. Vincent looked at Daniel. Contact him. No threats. No pressure. I want the truth, and I want everything documented. That afternoon, Ethan was shelving new books at the neighborhood store when Vincent called. Ethan almost ignored the phone, but something in him had changed after the night before. Hello. I found out what happened. Vincent's voice was controlled, but Ethan heard something beneath it. Tell me. Vincent explained everything without softening the facts. When he reached the clinic call, Ethan sat down behind the counter. He knew about Noah and Liam? Yes. Ethan closed his eyes. Suddenly the past rearranged itself. Charles had not merely pushed him away. He had understood exactly what Ethan was carrying into an uncertain future. Why would anyone do that? Ethan whispered. Because they believe caring about you would make me weaker. Ethan gave a bitter little laugh. And did it? Vincent was silent for a moment. No, losing you did. Ethan had no response. That evening, Vincent came to the apartment again. Noah and Liam were building a cardboard city across the living room floor. Liam immediately handed Vincent an empty cereal box and informed him that it was supposed to become a hospital. Vincent removed his expensive coat, sat cross-legged on the carpet, and accepted the assignment without complaint. Ethan watched from the kitchen as Noah corrected Vincent's placement of a paper doorway 3 times. The feared Vincent Hayes patiently moved it 3 times. It should have looked ridiculous. Instead, it looked painfully natural. Later, after the twins went to brush their teeth, Ethan finally asked, "What happens to Mercer?" Vincent looked toward him. "Nothing that touches this family. Daniel will obtain a statement and turn the relevant records over to our attorneys. Mercer will never work for my organization again." Ethan studied him. "That is all. What did you expect?" The Vincent Hayes people whisper about. Vincent's expression softened. "That man is exactly why Mercer thought he could decide my life for me. I will not let him decide what kind of father I become too." Before Ethan could answer, Noah and Liam returned in pajamas. Liam climbed onto the couch beside Vincent while Noah remained standing with a serious expression. "We have a question," Noah announced. Ethan immediately became nervous. Vincent looked equally uncertain. "All right." Noah glanced at Liam, then back at Vincent. "If you are really our father, does that mean you are staying?" Vincent looked at Ethan before answering, asking permission with his eyes once again. Ethan gave the smallest nod. Vincent turned toward the boys. "Only if you want me to." Liam smiled instantly, but Noah was not finished. "Forever is a long time." Vincent nodded. "I know." Noah studied him carefully. "Then you better practice." "Practice what?" Noah pointed toward the cardboard city. "Being our dad." Vincent looked at Ethan, and for the first time since their lives collided again, Ethan saw hope instead of regret. Vincent discovered that practicing fatherhood required far more patience than running an empire. Over the next 2 weeks, he followed Ethan's rules without argument. He never arrived unannounced. He never sent employees to watch the apartment. He never bought the boys extravagant gifts to win their affection. Instead, he showed up on Tuesday afternoon with 2 library books, learned that Liam refused to eat peas unless they were mixed into mashed potatoes, and spent nearly 40 minutes helping Noah build a model bridge from wooden craft sticks. The twins slowly stopped treating him like a fascinating stranger. Liam began saving Vincent a seat at the kitchen table. Noah started asking questions about everything from Vincent's favorite baseball team to whether he had been afraid of thunderstorms as a child. Ethan watched it happen cautiously, refusing to confuse progress with trust. Then Daniel called. Charles Mercer had provided a formal statement confirming what the recovered records already showed. He admitted that several senior figures in the Hayes organization had considered Ethan a distraction during Vincent's transition into leadership. Mercer had acted on that belief, intercepted communications, and deliberately allowed both men to misunderstand each other. The truth should have brought Ethan relief. Instead, it made him realize how easily powerful people had once decided what his future should be. Vincent seemed to understand. That evening, after the twins fell asleep, he placed a folder on Ethan's kitchen table. "What is this?" Ethan asked. "Changes." Vincent sat across from him. Mercer was able to interfere because too much authority was concentrated among too few people. Daniel and outside attorneys are restructuring everything. Personal communications will never pass through organizational advisors again. Ethan opened the folder but did not read far. "You did not need to show me this." "Yes, I did." Vincent's voice remained quiet. "You need to know that I understand the problem was larger than one dishonest man." Ethan studied him. 5 years earlier, Vincent would have solved betrayal by tightening his control. The man sitting across from him was deliberately giving some of that control away. "And what happens now?" Ethan asked. Vincent took a slow breath. "That depends on you. You are their father." "Biologically, yes. That does not give me permission to walk into the life you built and rearrange it." Ethan had expected demands about schools, neighborhoods, security, perhaps even the apartment itself. Instead, Vincent continued, "I missed 5 years. I cannot recover them by taking over the 6th. Ethan looked down at his hands. "You could make things difficult for me." "I could." Vincent did not pretend otherwise. "But then Noah and Liam would learn that being powerful means forcing people to accept what you want. I do not want them learning that from me." The words settled heavily between them. Ethan remembered the young man from the bookstore cafe, the one who had once seemed happiest when nobody expected him to be Vincent Hayes. Perhaps that man had never disappeared completely. "I am still angry," Ethan admitted. "So am I. I still do not know whether I can trust this." "Then do not trust it yet." Vincent stood and reached for his coat. "Watch what I do." Before he reached the door, small footsteps sounded in the hallway. Liam appeared holding his blanket, with Noah behind him. "Are you leaving?" Liam asked. "It is late," Vincent said. Noah frowned. "But tomorrow is Saturday." Vincent glanced toward Ethan. "It is." Noah looked at Ethan too. "Can Vincent have breakfast with us?" Ethan hesitated. 2 hopeful faces waited for his answer, but Vincent did not pressure him. He simply stood by the door. Finally, Ethan nodded. "Breakfast? 9 o'clock." Liam immediately corrected him. 8. "We get hungry early." Vincent smiled. 8 it is." The next morning, at exactly 8, Ethan opened the door and found Vincent holding a paper bag from the neighborhood bakery. Noah inspected the contents and looked disappointed. "You forgot blueberry muffins." Vincent froze. Then Ethan laughed, the first unguarded laugh Vincent had heard from him in 5 years. Vincent looked from Ethan to the twins and smiled. "All right," he said. "Apparently I still need more practice." 3 months later, Saturday breakfast had become a tradition. Vincent still arrived at 8 in the morning, but he never forgot the blueberry muffins anymore. The twins had taught him other important lessons too. Noah liked the edges cut off his toast. Liam believed every pancake tasted better when shaped like an animal. Both boys considered Saturday morning sacred, which meant phones stayed away from the table unless there was a genuine emergency. Ethan had expected Vincent to struggle with that rule. Instead, Vincent seemed to treasure it. The man who once measured his days in meetings now measured Saturday mornings in syrup, library trips, and arguments about which dinosaur was strongest. Nothing about their new life happened quickly. Ethan insisted on that. Vincent maintained his own home and respected every boundary Ethan established. He attended school events only after asking permission. He learned the twins' routines instead of changing them. Most importantly, he never asked Ethan to forget what had happened. Trust returned through ordinary moments rather than dramatic promises. One snowy afternoon, Ethan found Vincent sitting on the living room floor repairing Noah's cardboard city after Liam had accidentally crushed the library. "You know we could build another one," Ethan said. Vincent carefully straightened a paper wall. "Noah built this one." Ethan understood then that Vincent was not trying to replace 5 missing years. He was learning to value every day he had now. The legal review of Charles Mercer's actions eventually ended. Vincent reorganized his business, removed the advisors who had supported Mercer's interference, and created boundaries between his professional world and his family. Ethan did not ask for details beyond what affected the boys. He no longer wanted their future controlled by old secrets. Spring arrived slowly in Chicago. On the first warm Sunday, the four of them walked through Lincoln Park beneath trees beginning to turn green. Noah and Liam raced ahead toward a small footbridge, laughing as Ethan reminded them not to go too far. Vincent walked beside him, hands in his coat pockets. "You seem nervous," Ethan said. "I am. That is unusual." Vincent smiled. "I have been thinking about something." Ethan waited. "I do not want to recover what we had," Vincent said. Ethan looked at him in surprise. Vincent continued, "We were different people then. I want to build something new, if you ever decide you want that too. No deadlines. No expectations." Ethan looked toward the twins. 3 months earlier, he would have heard a request hidden inside those words. Now he heard something else. Patience. "Something new sounds possible," Ethan said. Vincent stopped walking. "Possible." Ethan smiled. "Do not make me repeat it." Vincent laughed, and the sound carried across the park. Ahead of them, Liam suddenly turned around. "Dad." Vincent responded instantly. "What happened?" Liam pointed toward a family selling colorful paper kites nearby. "Can we get one?" Vincent froze for half a second. Ethan noticed. So did Noah. Liam did not seem to realize what he had just said. "You called him Dad," Noah announced. Liam blinked. "I did." Vincent's eyes met Ethan's. The first time that word had been directed at him, he had stood speechless in a hotel lobby, staring at 2 children he never knew existed. Now his expression softened into something Ethan had once believed the world had taken from both of them. Liam tugged Vincent's sleeve. "Well, you are our dad, right?" Vincent crouched so they were eye to eye. "If that is what you want to call me." Liam considered this with great seriousness. "Okay, Dad. Can we get the kite?" Vincent laughed. "Yes." Noah immediately protested that they needed 2 because sharing one would create unnecessary problems. Ethan watched Vincent negotiate kite colors with his sons beneath the bright spring sky, and felt the last 5 years settle into their proper place. They would always be part of them, but they no longer controlled what came next. Vincent had once been a painful memory. Noah and Liam had once been a secret Ethan believed he had to protect alone. Now there were 4 people walking home together, carrying 2 kites, and no promises bigger than the next day. For Ethan, that was enough. For Vincent, it was everything.